Over the last few days, since Christmas, I've been busy painting components, in particular painting things like, I don't know whether you can see this, but little screws. And I'm now ready to start assembly. So I'm starting with the back plates and the new kingpin assemblies that I've made. So I'll be putting those back together. Actually, I've already done one, so I'll just zoom out a little bit. And here's the unit that I've completed. So you can see all the little 14BA nuts. Hopefully you can see them there. Easier to see on the other side because I've not actually bothered to paint the nuts on this side. I just painted the bolt heads. So the next thing to do basically is to cut these over length bolts down to size and assemble the other unit. So I think I'll assemble the other unit and then I'll cut the bolt heads. So there we are. I've now got both hubs and stub axles assembled. And as you can see, here and here, the addition of these little nuts and bolts adds a level of detail and refinement to these components. So I'm going to mount these onto the axle. Well, now I've put the first of the kingpins and steering components onto the axle that I made. At the moment, that's the front of the car. You can see there's a few bits and pieces need resolving. I've got to cut these off, and there's a bit of touching up to do in a few places. But you can see all of the steering mechanisms, which is that piece down there, is on and functioning. You can probably just see it going up and down in the corner. Sorry, not steering mechanisms, braking mechanisms. So I'm going to plod on and get the second stub axle onto the primary axle, and I'll get back when I've completed that. So I've finished the assembly of the front axle as far as I can go. So you can see I've got the steering mechanism in place. I've got a few nuts to trim. Oops, that one's come adrift, so I'm going to have to repair that. You can see that just there. That little link has come disconnected from that rod. It's not sure it's that, but that's just a simple screwing job, so I'll get that resolved. And then one of the brake shoes fell off. And then my next task basically is to go around, and you can see there's a few places where you can see brass and where I've cut bolt heads off and whatnot. So I'll touch all this up and put it to one side until I start assembly on the chassis. And that's probably one of the next things I'll move on to, is assembly of the chassis. Just while I'm talking about things to do with suspension, the kit comes with these friction dampers, which were very common and popular on older racing cars and indeed on motorcycles. And in fact, my 1967 Chang'an motorcycle has a friction damper on the steering. The kit comes supplied with little nuts that go on here, but one of the things you often see on pictures of cars is a manual adjustment. And what I've done is I've made a number of these and then out of brass, and then I've chromium plated them. And there's 6 in all. I made 6 of these. So that's just another little embellishment that I've made for my particular kit. And here is the completed front axle. Beyond the components that I made, which you've seen in the earlier parts of this video, all of the rest of the axle has been built with the kit components. So I'll just give a brief description of it. So these stub axles are simply slotted over the original ones. You can see the brake cams in here. See if I can get a good picture of this, but I'm going to bring it a bit closer. Get the light correctly. You can see the braking arms with the little wing nuts on top. I mean, I've not adjusted any of this at the moment, so if you were to operate the braking levers, you wouldn't actually see the cams move. But you can see I've got the brake pads on both sides with a little spring to hold them together. Somewhere along the way I lost my springs that came with the kit, but fortunately I had a couple of springs from a previous build that I had in the workshop. So you can see there all the intricacies of the bits and pieces on the back of the brake drum. This particular connection rod was slightly short on my, slightly too long for the components that I've made, so I've shortened that. Slight problem because it's 2.5mm thread inside it, but fortunately I think it was a number 8 BA thread is almost the same size, so I was able to retap that once I'd cut it short. You can see the springs are all mounted now on the axle, and there's a view of the bottom with the brake actuating rods, and also you can see the spring nuts and whatnot now that it's all clamped on, and everything is painted. So there we have it. That's the front axle, which is now ready to go onto the car when I get to the point of being able to do that. And it's a bit too early at the moment because I've got other works to do, but what I have done is I started to assemble the chassis, and as you can see, these actually are 2 of the spring hangers which will be used to suspend that axle on the car. I've assembled all 8 of these. There's obviously 4 springs and 2 on each spring. So they're in storage at the moment. They've all been nicely painted. There is a lot of painting with this kit if you intend to do the kit justice and paint it as a typical car would be painted. But there you go, that's the front axle, chassis assembled. See if I can just show you that. So there's the chassis assembled. Just waiting now to get some other components resolved, such as the engine, which I'll put in the car before I'll start putting the axles on. And I've got quite a lot of work to do on the rear axles and transmission assembly too. So watch this space.